It's Ask Me Anything here today on Jimmy Rant. So, ask me anything. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live in the content. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Pretty much like clockwork. I come here at 11 a.m. every weekday. So check it out. Thanks for being here today, you guys. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page. So thank you guys for being here. Finally, we are over on my YouTube video stream. So thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live here on Instagram, we do put it on replay. I see lots of people watch the replay of Jimmy Rants on IGTV. So go check it out when this is over. If you're not watching live, or if you watch live and you want to go back and watch it again, you can definitely do it there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show. And then finally, you can also see all the past episodes at the official website. It's jimmyrants.com. While you're there, check out the past episodes. But if you like what I do and you find value in what I do here, I work very hard, you guys, to provide a whole lot of different kinds of information and come at it from an educated perspective. So if you see value in that and you're getting benefit from watching this show, definitely click on the Patreon link. It would be very much appreciated. Some people don't want to do a monthly kind of thing, so they're like, can I give you a one-time donation? I also have a PayPal link. All of those links, you guys, are at jimmyrants.com. So guys, this is yet another Friday, and we are here for you to basically ask me anything. This is literally my favorite day of the week to do Jimmy Rants, because I am one of those kinds of people that I like spontaneity. Whenever I go on other people's podcasts, and it happened this week, I was on somebody's podcast. She wanted to interview me about fasting. And she's like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I stopped her midway and I said, I don't need preparation. Let's just go. She's like, don't you want to know what I'm going to ask? I'm like, no, I'd rather not know what you're going to ask, because that keeps the authenticity of my answer all the more real. Like, you wouldn't have invited me on your show if you didn't think I had knowledge about the subject. And so I love spontaneity when it comes to podcasting as a guest. In fact, I often challenge many of my the people that interview me. I challenge them. Ask me something you don't think I've ever been asked before. And they're always kind of perplexed at that. Oh, what do you mean? And so sometimes they do pretty good, and other times I'm like, yeah, I gotten that one a million times. But what did you do before you were the keto guy? Yeah, I've gotten that one so many times, which, by the way, the answer is I was in marketing and retail customer service types of jobs. The job I had right before I started going full-time with Living La Vida Low Carb was I answered emails for a major corporation whose corporate office is here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And so I answered all the customer service emails that came in, which kind of prepared me for what I do in terms of interacting with people, crafting language. It was kind of a cool job. And then I jump right into this, and here we are. So, all right, so we have lots and lots and lots of questions I know you have pent up inside of you. So go ahead and write them down there. If you have a question that you want to ask of me here today, this is the day. I have so many people during the week. What about, and it's totally off topic of what I'm writing about. I'm like, come back on Friday. That's when we answer those questions. So questions about fasting and keto and cholesterol and podcasting, book writing, being famous online, or really anything you want to ask of me, give it a shot. Write your question down there. But before we get into that, I have a few short little topics here. I always like to bring up little quick headlines that I read that weren't worthy of a full Jimmy Rants, but definitely worthy of talking about. This first one is from Marion County, Florida. There is a sheriff there named Billy Woods, and he has instructed his deputies and any visitors to his town He's banned them from wearing masks. Banned them from wearing masks. He said in an email to his employees, "This is no longer a debate, nor is it up for discussion. My order will stand as is when you're on duty, working as my employee, or representing my office in any way. You will not wear a mask." They can wear only pre-approved masks in some circumstances, to go into the hospital, the courthouse, the jail, public-private schools, where there are mask mandates in place. Deputies should also carry masks while on patrol if they have to respond to a nursing home or assisted living facility, but they're not going to wear a mask. And there's the sheriff that is saying, don't wear a mask. If you go and you're under my command, don't wear a mask. That's really interesting, because that's bucking the trend of everywhere else in America right now. They're all saying, put on a mask, put on a mask, put on a mask. And this sheriff here says, the mayor said the local police chief there is also against the mandate. We've talked about it. We won't write a fine. We're just not going to enforce any mask mandate. Really, really interesting. All right. Are you missing films? Are you missing movies? You'll be pleased to know that a lot of these production companies are starting to ramp back up. And so when they go back on set, we're still living in the midst of a global pandemic. So filmmakers have been told, get this, you guys. Filmmakers have been told to ditch all sex scenes from your movies so you protect the actors from the coronavirus. Updated guidance suggests directors take inspiration from classic films made when sex on screen was prohibited. So they're concerned, you guys, that showing sex scenes and having these actors be in those positions actually would make them susceptible to the coronavirus. Wouldn't you just do testing of the actors on the set? And if they come back negative for COVID-19, why would you need to prohibit that? It's kind of weird, right? The guidelines suggest that characters should be shown fixing their clothes or redressing after the event is over, or limbs depicted moving under bedclothes. While another option is to show the closing of a bedroom door and then leave it to the viewer's imagination. The problem is that worked in classic films. Is it going to work once Pandora's box is open? We've seen enough sex scenes in movies now. I mean, I guess they're not important for plot, but they certainly add a bit of pizzazz to movies when you watch them, seeing those kinds of scenes. But it looks like for the time being, those kinds of scenes aren't going to fly. What if it is a part of the plot, though, of a movie? Like, I'm not trying to imagine what plot would have to include sex, but it's just interesting to me that they're going to make them talk about safe sex. Like, that's the ultimate, like, epitome of what's going on here. All right, let's move into some research that has come out. Did you know, are you a morning person? I am very much a morning person. I go to bed somewhere around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, typically. But then I'm up typically around 3 to 3:30 in the morning. And so I am very much the prototypical morning person. And I bound out of bed and I'm happy and I'm ready to go, energetic. I know some people are very, and then they drag and they have to drink coffee and maybe couple, 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee before they're awake. And I'm just the opposite. But then those people are night owls and I go to bed early. So if you are a morning person, new research suggests that it's linked with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. Those at a higher genetic risk of Alzheimer's disease are more likely to call themselves a morning person, according to this new study just got published in the journal Neurology. Yes, Jax, there is a 3:30 in the morning, I promise you. It's based on an analysis of data gathered from different genome-wide association studies, which involve identifying genes associated with various diseases. The team had scientists from Imperial College London. They found no evidence of disturbed sleep patterns causing Alzheimer's, but added those at higher risk also likely to have shorter sleep duration. Now, here's the interesting thing. If it's just about sleep duration, and thus extrapolating that shorter sleep duration interprets as bad sleep, I disagree with that. Like, we know from many studies that when you go ketogenic, when you actually shift your body, you shift your metabolism over, you might get less sleep than you did when you were a sugar burner, carb burner, but it's more efficient sleep. Now, I wear a little ring that tells me my quality of sleep. I see the deep sleep. I see the REM cycle. I see the restorative sleep. And so sometimes I'll get 6.5 hours of total sleep, which looks like it might be bad sleep. But then you look at it and I have 2 hours of REM and 2 hours of deep. That's pretty darn good when it comes to the totality of your sleep. So it's interesting, they're extrapolating, and of course they did say linked with a higher risk. Didn't mean it caused the higher risk. But if you're a morning person, that's pretty interesting. They did find people with twice the genetic risk for Alzheimer's disease were 1% more likely to call themselves morning people. So it's really not that great of an increase. But I guess it was worthy of a research paper that they wanted to do it on. Thought I would pass that along to you. Got another new study that focuses on low-carb, high-fat diet effects on older people. This study, published in the Nutrition and Metabolism Journal, had researchers from the University of Alabama at Birmingham, their Nutrition Obesity Research Center. What they observed is improvements in body composition, fat distribution, and metabolic health in an 8-week study of a very low carbohydrate diet. Older adults with obesity have a high risk of cardiometabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And so the lead study author is an RN and a PhD named Amy Goss. And she says her team aimed to develop a very low carbohydrate diet, high fat diet. And the determination was ahead of time, well, would these deplete fat deposits and preserve lean mass without cutting calories in those older adults that had obesity? And so what they did for 8 weeks, they decided to try to do that, and they did very well. Their favorite part of the prescription, this very low carb, very high fat diet, was eggs. And they provided eggs to the participants, asked them to consume no less than 3 a day. Eggs were a part of the study. We can't conclude our findings are a result of just the eggs. I think we can conclude that whole eggs should be distributed into a diet in a healthful way, and it won't impact the blood cholesterol in older adults, which is always the concern when you start talking about older people. Oh my gosh, the cholesterol's higher. Never mind the fact that as you get older, higher cholesterol is incredibly normal. Something nobody ever talks about. These poor older people go to see their doctor and their cholesterol is like 287. Oh my God, you need a statin drug. So they start taking this drug to lower their cholesterol, but then they start having mental health decline. They start having achy joints and pain. Oh, well, that's just a part of the aging process. Never mind the fact that they didn't need to be on the drug to begin with. So I'm glad we see these kinds of studies come out there. They found significant improvements in overall lipid profile that would show a decreased risk of cardiovascular disease. Insulin sensitivity improved in response to this as well. And they observed improvements in body composition, fat distribution, and metabolic health just in 8 weeks of a low-carb, high-fat diet. So that's really, really good news. And then finally, and if you just joined us, we are on Ask Me Anything. This is your day, you guys. Start writing me questions down there. If you don't provide questions, I won't have anything to talk about here today. So if you have a question you want me to answer, please write a question down there. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know I don't know the answer, but I will try to answer any question that you write down there. All right, last one is another study. So people often say, how can I lower my blood sugar after a meal? So some people, they'll have a meal, maybe they'll have a few extra carbs in there that could be impacting their blood sugar. Is there a way to mitigate those effects? Well, there's a brand new study in NMCD Journal. A single 1-minute comfortable paced stair climbing bout will reduce postprandial after eating glucose following eating a mixed meal. So they wanted to see what effect would 1 minute of basically climbing stairs would do on an oral glucose tolerance test. So they got 30 people in a randomized controlled crossover trial, some of which were 0 minutes. They just sat down for the 1 minute. Others were 1 minute, 3 minute, 10 minute of stair climbing and descending at a self-selected pace after consumption of a mixed meal 4 different times. So compared to the control, compared to the people sitting down, all of them reduced their postprandial blood glucose at least 1 time point. So it's a lot of numbers all here gobbledygook together, but the conclusion was subjectively light, intense stair climbing and descending bouts as short as 1 minute in duration will attenuate the postprandial blood glucose response in normal weight individuals following the consumption of a mixed meal of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. More pronounced effects required longer bouts in a dose-dependent manner. So that's the power, though, you guys, of a little bit of movement when you have a meal that consists of something in there that you probably don't really need. Now, I'm assuming you could replicate the stairs in other forms of that kind of resistance, but I thought that was interesting. People often ask the question, how do you mitigate the effects if you have something that you shouldn't have? How do you mitigate the glucose effects of that? And it looks like a short burst, very short, 1 minute, as short as 1 minute, you can actually mitigate some of that effect. I don't think if you just eat gobs and gobs and gobs of carbs and have a crappy garbage diet and then you try to mitigate it with a 1 minute stair climbing, it ain't gonna work. It definitely has to include that mix. So, all right, that was the beginning little things I wanted to talk about. I still need your questions. So again, if you just joined us, get your questions down there. This is Ask Me Anything on Jimmy Rants. So I need your questions. If you have a question you want to ask of me here today, I've got a few in the queue here ready to go, and I'll answer those here momentarily. But when I'm done with those, I'm coming right to you guys. So get your questions ready, and when the time comes, we'll come to you. All right, let's come over to the ones that came in ahead of time on my Instagram stories. And let's see what we got here. Wow, a bunch of them today. All right, this is the first one. What do you think is the main reason why people fail at getting healthy and losing fat? This one's going to be a little bit surprising for some people. The main reason most people fail at getting healthy and losing fat is discouragement. I think they feel like they're getting all the right answers when they hear eat a low-fat diet. Exercise till you drop, eat healthy whole grains. All of these things that have become the mantra of what healthy living is supposed to be, that when you do it and you do it obediently and in your head you're like, I'm doing all the right things, the reason people fail is they think they're doing all the right things when they haven't customized it to themselves. And this is why I'm so over the prescriptiveness of this is the diet you should do. This is the exercise program you should do. I don't think there is a the that applies to everybody when it comes to diet. The only the maybe with your diet, real food. If you eat real food, that's probably the one the I would agree with. But most people are getting discouraged. And so if you're not feeling like, or you feel like you're doing everything right and you're not getting the results, you get majorly upset. And you think, oh, well, if I'm not going to lose weight doing everything I'm supposed to do, then I'm just going to stop. And that's why people fail. They also fail. Let me add another one here. Why do you think it's the main reason why people fail at getting healthy, losing fat? They put the focus only on weight loss. And I've talked about this pretty extensively before. When you tell people their major goal when it comes to getting healthy is losing weight, then you're going to discourage them when the weight, for whatever reason, stops falling off. Now, the first thing people think of when they're not losing weight is, oh, I need to shift something in my diet. But what if your diet is spot on? What if the diet isn't the issue? What if it's you've got excessive stress in your life? What if it you have an unresolved trauma from your past that you haven't dealt with adequately from a psychological perspective, and that's keeping that stress internalized in you so you can't release that fat. What if there's just a lot of things besides your diet that's impacting that? Those are some of the main reasons I think people fail at getting healthy and losing weight. But thank you for that question. Next question, thoughts on working with the vagus nerve for stress. Do you do it? Yes, I actually, and the vagus nerve, you guys, kind of goes right up in the back side of the head. And I love it. Like when I do ice baths, and I know if you're new to this, wait, Jimmy, you go into a bathtub full of ice? Yes, I do. I haven't done it in a little while. I need to do it again. But when you do that, you get down in the water deep enough so that you get your vagus nerve to go down into the water as well. Now, what's that doing? That's activating the chill center, and it's like the lower part of your back of your head. You feel that little nodule on the back of your head. That's the vagus nerve. And so I've also used some essential oils that are especially made for vagus stimulation. And so you'll put the essential oil back there and kind of rub it in, and you'll kind of get that stimulation. I think that is a de-emphasized, it's not emphasized enough, part of stress management and stress relief. So if you're not familiar with the vagus nerve, go look it up. He misspelled it here, but VAGUS is how you spell Vegas. Look it up on DuckDuckGo. I'm refusing to send people to the G word anymore, but look it up online and see what that's about, because I think you could see some real benefits if you work your vagus nerve. But thank you for that. Next question. I have gained way too much weight on Carnivore. How can I lose it? And I'll go back to what I was just saying. If you're gaining weight, it's not always your diet. The main thing I would say is if you're eating Carnivore, are you eating to satiety? Are you sticking to Carnivore? Are you going off plan at all? Do you include dairy? I know a lot of people that go Carnivore and they still include dairy, they're having issues, but then they remove the dairy and those issues go away. So that would be the first place I would look. Are you overly stressed? Are you dealing with sleeplessness? Are you having other issues going on? So if you're gaining weight, quote, too much weight, as you said, on Carnivore, and the context is you're trying to lose weight, then yes, something is going on. Now, you're not eating any carbohydrates, so you're not getting that stimulus. The only other thing I can think of is you might be getting, if you consume a carnivore diet and you use leaner cuts of meat, you might be getting a little bit of effects from that could be causing some weight gain. Not often. Most of the time, people can eat ad libitum whatever meats they want and they do okay. But perhaps that's an issue. Maybe have the fattier cuts of meat. And again, listen to satiety. If you don't listen to your satiety signals, you can even overconsume steak. You can. I regularly cook up some steaks on my grill out there. The other day, I'm used to eating 2 ribeyes when I have a meal. The other day, I noticed that after one, I was completely full. So my metabolism is starting to change to the point where I don't need to eat as much, and yet I'm getting the satiety. But I listen to that. Even though my routine is to normally have 2, because I felt full after 1. I didn't keep eating because I always eat 2. I listened to my body and I only had the 1. And it worked out pretty well for me. Of course, as you ramp up like some exercise and things like that, you can also get away with eating a little bit more. And that also could be helping you manage the weight while on Carnivore. But great question. Congratulations doing Carnivore. Not everybody's willing to do that. Next question. How do you feel about a global pandemic being made into a political issue in the United States? I think it's disgusting. I don't think COVID-19 has anything to do with politics. But see, here's the thing. When you're in a political election year, there will always be politicians who will try to make hay one way or the other about any issue. So whether we like that or not as Americans, whether we like that they politicize even things like race, politicize everything. That's just the way that works. It's why so many people have become jaded by the whole system. I don't want you to talk about that because that has nothing to do with it. I mean, look what they've done to red meat, by the way. Kamala Harris actually had a video less than a year ago where she was asked a question when she was running for president. Now she's the vice presidential running mate of Joe Biden. And they asked her a point blank question. If you could change the dietary guidelines and get rid of red meat, would you do it? She said, absolutely, I would. And so now she's come into my domain of talking about nutrition and it's politicized. Like, you don't need to politicize everything, and definitely not COVID-19. It's just unfortunate they're trying to use it as a weapon against one candidate and as well, we would do better than this candidate. It's just, people are over that. I think it's disgusting and it definitely should stay out of political discourse. But thank you for that question. Lots of questions ahead of time this week. Next one is, Grass-Fed Girl said, keep off my meat, Caitlin. I agree. Don't mess with my meat. Them's is fighting words. Next question, have you tried mouth taping? So those of you that don't know, there is this trend out there where you put a piece of tape over your mouth. There's companies that make this tape, so you don't have to use duct tape. If I did it, it might get stuck to my mustache and beard, and that would hurt to rip off. I may have a manicure, or what's that, where you do the eyebrows. The waxing. It might be like a waxing that I didn't want. So, but yes, I actually have tried mouth taping, and I gotta admit to you, I didn't like it. So for those of you that don't know, the concept behind it, and Metabolic Mike over here on Instagram was the one that got me interested in at least looking into it. So what it is, you tape up your mouth while you sleep because it's training your nose to start breathing, and there's health benefits that come from breathing through your nose as opposed to covering up your mouth. I didn't see personally any benefit from it other than I felt like I couldn't breathe as well, and I don't know if that's something with my, maybe I have some kind of impaired septum or something here. I don't know what the issue was, but I didn't like it. I felt like I couldn't breathe as deeply. The theory is that if you breathe through your nose, you'll sleep more soundly and you get good sleep. Well, I get decent sleep already, so I didn't need the mouth taping to make that happen. But yes, I have tried it. No, I didn't quite like it, but I do know a lot of people. I see Joshua says he got benefit out of it. I do know a lot of people get benefit out of taping their mouth, so it's worth looking into. Next question, what are your thoughts on Bulletproof coffee? Is it okay for keto maintenance? So, well, number one, I'm the wrong person to ask about coffee. People that know me well. I think coffee is disgusting. I'm one of those hyper tasters, and so coffee has a very bitter, nasty taste to it to me. I've had some of the best coffee in the world when I visited countries like Australia, for example. Hi, Mike, come try our coffee. It's the best in the world. Okay. At least I didn't like gag totally like I do with the ones here in America. So that said, it's a double-edged sword with Bulletproof coffee. I know people that swear by it. They have a Bulletproof coffee in the morning and they don't eat again until night. And if that's you, then great. That's basically you're having a liquid calorie breakfast when you have a Bulletproof coffee. And if you're trying to maintain a keto weight loss and health success, that's probably perfectly fine. My problem is when people think they're fasting and then they drink a Bulletproof coffee. I'm still fasting. No, you're not. You're no longer fasting when you have one of these. But if you like coffee and you want to get a little bit of extra fat into your body, so be it. Honestly, though, the more I've thought about it over the years, why do you want to get your calories from liquid sources? Why don't you want to eat real whole foods? And if you're eating basically meat as the primary source of your nutrition, why don't you make that the superstar rather than adding in 600 calories more of a Bulletproof coffee of MCT oil and butter and heavy cream, whatever you put in it, 400 to 600 calories. Why don't you just eat that much more steak? Like, to me, it seems like that would be a better option than using liquid calories. But that's just my personal opinion. Again, I know people that swear up and down that Bulletproof coffee saved their life. Next question. What's the best way to curb stress cravings 2 years in but still struggling the last month? Yeah, this one's easy. Don't stress. I know it's not easy to not stress, but I'm saying if you're stress craving, then it seems to me the craving is being induced by the stress. Do your best to get rid of that stress. That seems like the logical thing. Now, again, that's easy to say, very hard to do. If you're not already meditating, try to incorporate meditation, some yoga, do relaxation things, work on the vagus nerve like we were talking about earlier. All of those things can curb the stress, and by curbing the stress, watch what happens to those cravings. 2 years in, but struggling over the last month. Well, gee, what's happened in 2020? 2020, we have had a lot of stress. So hang in there, know that you're not alone in this, but deal with the stress. And yeah, that should help you. And finally, and then we'll come to you guys, what are your thoughts on the germ versus terrain theory? So there is this theory out there as it relates to the coronavirus, by the way, that we should be dealing with being infected by the virus, the germ theory, and thus doing anything we can up to a vaccine to try to deal with said virus. Or the terrain theory says, you know what, everything we need to deal with the virus is right here in our bodies. Our immune systems can be strong if we do the effort to put in the work to make sure the body is able to fight off infection, viruses and things like that. So there's this debate, and I fall on the terrain side of things. I think you can do things in your lifestyle that can put your body in the best possible position even when COVID-19 hits it. Like this whole notion of all these things we're being told to do, but not being told to have sunshine, not being told to eat real food, not being told to take various specified supplements like zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C, so forth and so on, not getting good rest. None of those things are being prescribed. All of those things feed into the terrain theory. Wearing a mask, being socially distanced, staying at home, blah, blah, washing your hands, all of that is based on the germ theory. Guys, I'm going to fall on the terrain series side of the theory all day, every day, because I think all of our bodies are more than capable of dealing with this thing if and when it hits. But thank you for that question, and we are all out of the preconceived questions that came in. That is the most I think I've ever had on Jimmy Rants before. I think that was 8 questions ahead of time. So thank you guys who submitted those ahead of time on my stories, which, by the way, on Thursdays on my Instagram stories is where you can type in your questions. I always put it up right after I finish the Jimmy Rants on Thursday. Somewhere in that afternoon, I post a little box that you can type in your question, and then we hit those first thing when I come on Jimmy Rants on the Ask Me Anything like we're doing today. So this is Ask Me Anything. We still have lots and lots of time left, so please get your questions in. Write your questions down there. Anything you want to ask is fair game, so if I don't want to answer it, I won't, but I try to answer everybody's questions. But thank you guys for being here. JimmyRants.com is the website. See what we have over here. Mistatius has the first question. Have you ever had problems with emotional overeating and binge eating? If so, how do you suggest overcoming it? Obviously, when I was 410 pounds, I had some stuff going on. And I was a binge eater and a half. And I've talked about this quite a bit before. For me, it was identifying what it was that was driving that behavior. Well, for me specifically, in my example, I went through some pretty tumultuous times in my teenage years, from the time I was just turned 14 until I got out of the house at 17 and a half, went off to college. I was physically and emotionally abused by my father, pretty much repeatedly on a daily basis. And a lot of people take childhood trauma like that and they turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to sex, they turn to all these things to try to cope. Well, what I turned to was crap crappy garbage, junk, sugary foods, because I always needed that hit. So what I learned during those teenage years is I needed a way to cope. So when I got out of the house, how did I cope? I would eat whole pizzas at a time. I would go buy, big boxes of snack treat things, and I would eat the whole thing at one time. I remember in college going to buy the double stuffed Oreo cookies, and I would sit there and eat the whole package because I was trying to cover up pain that I didn't quite understand what I was dealing with. So that was my trigger of why I did that. Not everybody has that as their trigger, but all of us have a trigger. So what I would suggest you do to help overcome it is to find what your trigger is. What is it that's driving you to want to overeat? What's driving you to emotionally eat? And when you look at the driver and you get right to the root cause of what that is when the healing can start to begin and you overcome it. So that's the long and short of that one. There's a lot of other things. Definitely try to seek out therapy if it is something like trauma. I will tell you that this year was like the first time I've really come to terms with, oh my gosh, that explains why I got to 410 pounds. It explains why I would eat mindlessly, just stuff my mouth and didn't know why I was doing it. I think sometimes when we're caught up in the midst of that kind of thing, you can't see it until you're past it and you look back and go, oh my God, how did I not see it? So maybe seek out some friends, trusted friends that you can talk about anything with and say, hey, are you noticing any behaviors from me that, seem weird, blah, blah, blah. Have those conversations. Open, honest with yourself can definitely help overcome some of that. But I'm sorry you're going through that, but hopefully that helps answer your question. Caitlin wants to know, do you think people who depend on exercise for keeping blood sugar down, does that mean it's just artificially lowered? I do, Caitlin, because it's just like those people who are type 2 diabetics, for example, who consume a high carb diet because they're told to do that. And yet they shoot themselves with insulin. Why do they do that? Because the doctor says, well, your blood sugars get too high when you eat a meal, so you've got to shoot yourself with insulin. Never mind the fact that if they just cut out the thing that was shooting up the blood sugar to begin with, they wouldn't need the insulin. I think the same thing is true for exercise. Those who think I need the exercise, they're not realizing that maybe they don't have to exercise near to the intensity that they do, if they just ate a little better than they do. So it's why I don't like the whole notion, and I've heard many a trainer say this, oh, well, just exercise and then eat whatever you want when you get home. I'm like, in fact, I had a spin class instructor. It ticked me off the day she said this. She said, well, you did really good here today in the spin class. Go and eat a donut. What? Like she was like saying, you rewarded yourself with what you did here today, so go eat a donut. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like this is the epitome of the wrong kind of thinking. And yet these are supposed to be the purveyors of health and promoting health to people. And it's just shocking that they have these belief systems. So it's a great thought process. Thank you, Caitlin. Bridget says, has to be health first, always. Liz wants to know, what were your effects on your A1C during carnivore? So I've been a carnivore a little over a year and a half now. I have not tested this recently, so I apologize for that, Liz. I have not wanted to go anywhere near a medical facility anywhere because I don't want to be diagnosed as COVID. So I haven't run it recently, but the last time I checked it, it was in the midst of, I want to say the first 8 months I was on carnivore. I want to say it was month 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly when, but my A1C was 5.1. So has done very well. I know Sean Baker has had his A1C run and his has tended to be a bit higher. I think his is higher because he does an insane exercise routine. I know he's backed off on that insanity he used to do. He still does high intensity, but not near to that level anymore. And I think that's what's impacting his A1C levels. But most people who eat a low carb ketogenic carnivore diet, you're going to see your A1C very easily go below 5.5, and for a lot of people, even below 5.0. But thank you for that question. Casey wants to know, people drink 300 calories worth of butter and oil and say they're fasting. I do like them personally, but because I like them after dinner and tea. Yeah. I don't have any opposition to people drinking those kinds of things, bulletproof coffee and that kind of thing. I hate that whole notion of people thinking they're fasting. You're keeping insulin under control. I will give you that. You're not going to spike insulin with basically liquid fat, but you're not fasting anymore. Are your chickens still laying a lot of eggs, says Holly? Yes. So during the summer months when it's not oppressively hot out there, right now it's a little bit cooler in the Carolinas, it's in the 80s. We've been getting, of the 17 chickens, I've been getting right at about 9 to 11 a day. So that's pretty good. They don't lay every single day. Basically, I think their cycle of laying is about once every 30 hours during these times of the year. During the winter, it gets really bad because when it's really cold, they're just shivering and just trying to stay awake. And plus, there's less sun during the day. I think their laying cycle has more to do with where the sun is in the sky. So the longer the days, the more eggs you get. When there's shorter days, when it starts getting a certain darkness out there, they go right to the coop. And they know instinctively to stay in there until the sun starts to come up, and then they come right out. And early in the morning, they're pecking all over the ground. So during the winter, that same 17 might give me 4 to 7 eggs a day. So trying to enjoy the eggs while they're here, because I know the colder days are definitely coming. But thank you for that question. Low Carb New Yorker says, Planet Fitness puts out Tootsie Rolls. Yeah. They're under this notion that you need those things for energy, and it's just so disgusting. Casey says the idea that exercise is a way to earn your food and eat non-nutrition foods just kills me. Yeah, me too. I did see one more question come in. I still have lagging skin issues. It seems to be tied to food, but I'm having a hard time figuring it out. Are you talking about loose skin? So loose skin to me is this kind of double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want to get rid of it. It's grotesque, da-da-da-da-da. On the other hand, it reminds you from whence you came, Joshua. And so I think sometimes we get so caught up in, well, I'm whole again, and so therefore I should have every part of my body be whole again, back to what it was before I destroyed my body by eating poorly. And the reality is that's just not true. Now, to deal with it specifically, depending on the severity of how much weight you had and how much you lost and blah, 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 eating healthy fats, I think, is critical. I think incorporating definite periods of fasting, extended fasting, create some of that autophagy, and some of that actually helps to firm up some of the loose skin. But again, this is going to be very case dependent. There are some people who are going to have loose skin forever. I think of my friend Gormy Gone Keto here on Instagram. He's got a ton of loose skin. Now, you could get the little tummy tuck surgery. It's dangerous, risky to do that, but you could do that. It could do any number of things. At the end of the day, I think most people who have those kinds of things, you wear it as a badge of honor, because you know from whence you came and how long it took you to work on that. And I think over time it might firm up a little more. So that's my answer. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to Facebook, see what you guys have to say. What's up, Facebook? What essential oil do you use on your vagus nerve to help with stress? So, Marianne, I have one. It's in there, and I'm sorry I can't run to go get it, but it's this one that's specifically for the vagus nerve. I think it's a mix of different ones. You could probably type in a search, vagus nerve essential oils, and see what the mixture is, and you might be able to make that mixture yourself. But basically any one that would like stimulate that vagus nerve, you just rub it back there. Sometimes I'll even rub it all in my head and just kind of do like a head massage, scalp massage. And that does an incredible job of also calming you down. I mentioned earlier the ice baths and then making sure I dip down low enough so the vagus nerve goes below the ice water. You could probably just take a cold pack and just stick it right there and then just lean back in a chair and get the same stimulation of the vagus nerve. We have so many ways to chill ourselves out, and literally with an ice pack that way, but to de-stress that I don't think we use because we're not told about these things. And we have so many ways to do that. So definitely avail yourself of that and see how it works for you. Kira says, I am going to get skin removal surgery, not sure of collagen or what type is best to help in prep and post-recovery. I take grass-fed beef collagen every day. I told you guys, I think I showed you last week on Ask Me Anything, the little gelatin things that I make. So they're gelatin with some electrolytes. Today I'm going to try some gelatin with some chocolate bone broth powder. I want to see what that tastes like, trying to make like little gels out of that. But I get collagen every single day from high quality animals. Could that ostensibly help with loose skin? It should. But I think some people are so far gone that you're not ever going to see it completely firm all the way up. Thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to my YouTube channel. See what kind of questions you guys have. Missed you last Friday. Well, Nurse Feel Good, welcome back. I'm glad you're here today. Shirley says, sound like a good experiment, talking about the sheriff who is banning masks in Florida. Yes, in Florida. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, I agree with you. Natalie says, I've lost 20 kilos fasting since March. Another 2 kilos to go to reach my target weight. Nevertheless, body fat percentage is 37%, not 25%, considered ideal. One size does not fit all. That's true. That's true. Natalie says, can I use my Ketonix breath ketone device to measure the impact of carbs during maintenance? Probably less accurate than doing blood ketones. So, no, I don't think you can. There are some interesting questions. I'm going to pass on a couple of them. Sorry, you guys, a little too personal. Harpsy says, I think it is possible to overdose on D3. Can you comment? Yeah, I talked about this one before. In fact, earlier this week, I did a whole episode, might have been last week, a whole episode just on the subject of vitamin D. You cannot get vitamin D toxicity unless you go to like 1 million IU of vitamin D. People are so worried about toxicity of vitamin D. Go watch that Jimmy Rants. It wasn't that long ago. Go scroll back through YouTube and you'll find it. But I take 10 to 25,000 on a pretty much regular basis now. And I've heard people go as high as 100,000 and they don't have ill effects. The point is getting your blood levels up to a healthy range, which we talked about in that episode. But the only case of toxicity from vitamin D was that person that took 1 million IU by accident. Can you talk about, Craig wants to know, the importance of delayed gratification and how it relates to diet, willpower, and life? Yeah, I mean, if you put in effort now to attain something you want to get, yeah, I think that's fine. The problem is most people don't have the will to wait for delayed gratification because we are an instant society. We're told if you want something, you go get it now. And that's kind of the mentality of a lot of people. But those of us that have been successful and those of us that have had good things happen in our life, it's because we were willing to wait and put off gratification in the immediacy for that long-term gratification. I saw a TikTok video the other day of this lady who was going through med school. And while she was in med school, all her friends wanted to go out. She said, no, I have to study. And you could see her sad and oh, you want to go out? No, I've got a bigger goal in mind, trying to become a doctor. Now, she's a doctor and successful and making money. Now all those same friends are saying, I don't have any money. I wish there was something I could do. So it was a really powerful TikTok video. So I'm all about delaying gratification for the greater good. Nurse Feelgood says, I love food so much that I eat too much of it too often. How do you learn to view food as fuel? Yeah, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are just like you that do see food as an emotional support. They do see food as a comfortness in their life. And again, there's nothing wrong with that inherently if that is how you see food and how you view food and how you use food in your life. But I think when you start fueling your body better, when you start shifting over to more kind of real whole foods, there is a mindset shift that takes place where your body might have been excitable by those carbohydrate-based foods that you had before, and they gave you some sense of comfort in the moment. Now, that's a real fast comfort, and then an hour later, you're just, again. Now you're eating foods that are much more nourishing, and I would encourage you, if you're not focusing on just basically real whole foods, that mostly animal-based kinds of foods, eating those things will cumulatively, over time, make you feel pretty much spontaneously happier so that you don't feel that need to eat. Trust me, I'm the king of used to eating and eating and eating and eating. I used to have 16 cans of Coca-Cola a day. I used to eat whole boxes of Little Debbie snack cakes a day. I used to do all this. And I would eat all day long. Fast food, crap food, you name it. I would eat all day long. Nowadays, if I'm not fasting, which I do like to fast quite a bit, I eat 1 to 2 meals a day. And it's basically animal-based foods. That's it. Like, that's the power of shifting your nutrition like this and putting yourself in a better position that you don't have those things after a while. I just say, stick to it, give it a little bit of time, and you will find that those cravings and those desires to overeat go away. Harpsy says, it builds up. I felt terribly thirsty, couldn't drink enough water. It could be, of course, an individual thing. I will be off for a while and go to just 1 drop every other day. Interesting. All right, thank you, YouTube. I think I saw... Nope, no new questions over here. All right, let's come back over to Instagram. Thank you guys for being here. This has been Ask Me Anything. We're still here for a few more minutes, so if you want to drop in a few last-minute questions, please do so. Mimosa says, trying to figure out my insulin resistance, how to balance it. Have you noticed that if your protein is higher versus fat, that you get higher blood sugar readings? I've noticed this in myself. Great question. I have done some experiments, Mimosa, and very interestingly, you're not alone, by the way. There are some people who do see their blood glucose go up when they overconsume protein. Guess what happens in Jimmy Moore, though? I did an experiment, and I've talked about this quite a bit in some of the interviews I've had with medical professionals recently. I did do this experiment where I ate a pound of chicken in one sitting. And I had a continuous glucose monitor on so I could see in real time what my glucose was doing every 15 minutes. I was testing it. So at baseline, it was 82. 15 minutes later, it was up to like 85. 30 minutes later, it was up to 87. So that's a normal rise. Here's what happened though. 45 minutes in, I was ravenously hungry. I was dizzy. I was lethargic and I was hungry. And my blood sugar had fallen down into the 70s. It ultimately went all the way down into the upper 60s. So, and then 2.5 hours later, it finally came back somewhat close to baseline, and I went and ate some fat and protein. I ate some eggs, basically, and I felt better after I did that. But what that told me was protein, because of my insulin resistance, doesn't spike my glucose. What it did was it spiked my insulin. And so once insulin got spiked, guess what? Blood sugar went down. I went into what's called reactive hypoglycemia. So it's when you eat food and your blood sugar goes down. And people think, oh, blood sugar down, good thing. No. In that context, blood sugar down meant insulin had gone up so high, it was pushing that blood sugar down. And physiologically, my body was like, WTF, it's time to do something. And so coming up this week, this next week on the Living La Vida Low Carb show, I've got an interview with Dr. Ben Bigman. He wrote a book called, oh, here it is over here. He wrote a book called Why We Get Sick. So tune in on Wednesday of the Living La Vida Low Carb show, and we will talk about that. But I explained that experiment I did to him. He had an incredible answer to that as to what he thinks happened to me. So tune in for that this coming up week. That is already available, by the way. If you are one of my Patreon subscribers, you can actually watch that video right now at jimmyrants.com. Click on the Patreon link, and if you make a donation of any amount, you have access to those, early access to those videos right now. So go check that out. But yeah, it is possible to see your blood sugar readings go higher or your blood insulin levels go higher. Have you caught the Netflix series Unwell? They have an episode on fasting, had people for and against, especially water fast. Liz, thank you for that. I had to get rid of my Netflix when I started having no money coming in this year. So I know I'm one of the weirdos. I don't have Netflix. I probably will bring it back once money starts coming back. But no, I have not seen it. I will look it up somewhere, somehow. Unwell. Interesting. Fasting is a hot topic, though, so I'm not surprised they did a little documentary series about it. Low Carb New Yorker, fasting insulin was 4. Wow, that's incredible. Last checked, I think that's great, but still stalled. Can blood glucose be the issue based on what foods or how much I'm eating? It could be, or it could not be. I mean, inflammation levels matter. There's so many moving parts to this that, well, my fasting insulin is 4. I should be skinny as an ox. And no, it doesn't work that way. We want to think that one singular marker, being healthy, should just magically make weight go away. And it just doesn't work that way. Most of my metabolic health markers are incredible as well. And I still have a belly. And so there's lots of other things going on. I'm still trying to figure some of those things out for myself. HSCRP was very elevated. Well, there you go. You have inflammation. And so I don't know what very elevated meant, but if it's over 3, it's very elevated. Just keep working at it. Don't get discouraged. Just know that that can have an impact on your weight when you have other markers out of control. But congratulations on your insulin. That's killer. That's perfect. I've read too much fat could cause a delayed rise reaction in your blood sugar, especially if you have the dawn effect. I've actually heard that about protein, not fat. I mean, obviously you don't want to overconsume fat. You want just enough fat to blunt the blood sugar effects of the foods that you're eating if it's a mixed meal, but you don't want to overdo it. How do you cook your eggs? I like soft scrambled. Look that one up. What does the dawn effect teach us, and should we be afraid of gluconeogenesis? No, the dawn effect just means you have higher blood sugar in the morning. It means you have glucose-dependent functions of the body that will be taken care of with that. And that's how you, and no, you don't need to worry about gluconeogenesis if you're eating to satiety. Harpsy says, how is insulin measured? It's a blood test. A doctor can run it. It's about $50 out of pocket, but the problem is most doctors aren't running it, and they have no desire to run it because they don't know what to do with it. That's the problem. All right, guys, we are completely out of time for this episode of Jimmy Rants. So thank you so much for being here today. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, we do start here live over here on Instagram. Go follow me there at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you for being here all week long, and come back next week when we start the shows back again. We also simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch the replay here on Instagram. As soon as this is over, it'll go up on IGTV. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Finally, pop on over to JimmyRants.com, the official website. You can watch all the past episodes there. And if you love what we do here, you guys, I work very hard to provide an entertaining and informative show for you here, click on the Patreon link or the PayPal link, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and until next time, we'll see you then.